Page 32, Atlas on the Run. On a sultry morning in Washington, D.C., Tim Worth lopes across traffic to a waiting navy blue sedan and folds his lanky frame into the back seat. "Rayburn Building," he tells the driver, flipping open a folder and beginning to read the testimony he is expected to deliver 3 minutes from now to a House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee. The newly minted Undersecretary of State for Global Affairs, with more issues on his plate than anyone in town save Bill Clinton, is having a typical morning. "What's a fatwa?" he asks, marking the text with a black felt-tip pen as the car careens around the tidal basin. "It's a religious edict," explains Sally Brandell, an aide in the front seat. Today, Worth is expected to testify about counterterrorism efforts. Tomorrow, he may have to tackle immigration policy, international narcotics trafficking, human rights, emerging democracies, biodiversity protection, ocean treaties, overpopulation, global warming, AIDS, anything that falls under the rubric of transnational issues. Worth, 54, is out of the car and moving in one motion. A 6-term Democratic congressman and 1-term U.S. Senator from Colorado, he knows well the echoing hallways and high-ceilinged hearing rooms of the House office building. Gliding into the back of the packed committee room, 6 TV cameras, 30 reporters, 100 spectators, Worth takes a seat at center stage. His voice is clear and stentorian. The Clinton administration is committed to exerting strong and steady leadership in a rapidly changing world, he promises the half-dozen congressmen scattered across the dais. Promoting democratic governments and institutions that are fully accountable to their citizens is our most basic tool for advancing free markets and our long-term national security, and addressing the great and complex global issues of our time. As Clinton's foreign policy stonemason, Worth is laying the foundation for a new American approach abroad. He is expected to be expert and effective on many intransigent issues. Observers in Washington question whether, even with a 1994 budget of $3.3 billion, 16% of the U.S. federal government's total international affairs kitty, he can make a difference on any. Worth says his task, as directed by President Clinton, is to reorient the State Department, a bureaucratic behemoth traditionally concerned with maintaining a U.S. presence overseas. But the challenge to the U.S. is more diffuse now than during the Cold War. Security is threatened by global pollution, AIDS, floods of refugees from overpopulated and eroded lands, and by the growing disparity between the industrialized and third worlds as much as by weapons. Few people on Capitol Hill will speak ill of a man in power, but the undercurrent along the Potomac is strong. Worth has been given a task that will be difficult, if not impossible, to accomplish. Worth is undaunted by whisperings of what he calls old think. In my opinion, the most compelling global issue is population, and if we do not get on top of that issue, no matter what we do in all these other things, it's not going to make a lot of difference to our ability to preserve the globe and make sure people have access to the kind of opportunities that we have all had, Worth says. Population, the environment, narcotics and terrorism, democracy. These are the issues of the future. And it's my job to raise them higher in people's attention and to make sure that the State Department portfolio gives these a greater priority. Scrunched down in the back, with his shoes off and his knees jammed into the seat ahead, Worth explains he has 4 main agendas: support democracy and human rights, protect the environment, control population, and foster sustainable economic development. We should not be granting help to countries that are not parallel to that agenda, he insists. The basic thing is, we have not reordered our national priorities to meet the realities of the new world, Worth explains. We're still spending an enormous amount on a Cold War defense and intelligence establishment. And what we're doing for lack of small amounts of money is missing huge opportunities in counter-narcotics, in population control, environment, building democratic institutions. We don't have to spend any more money, he adds. We just have to spend money a lot smarter than we are now. Of course, there's a great deal of frustration involved, Worth says. You don't get things done as rapidly as you want to. But if you figure out how to use the bureaucracy, if you figure out how to get the momentum of this very large enterprise, you can end up being ahead of where you started. Vocabulary focus: sultry, lope, lanky, rubric, disparity, undaunted, portfolio. More information: on one's plate, stentorian, kitty, behemoth, scrunch down.